In fact, that is the pattern. I'd just like to point something out about Eisenhower, in that he was one of the key presidents to build up the military-industrial complex, and he only recognized the error of his ways right at the beginning, right at the end. But he's definitely not blameless, and if Eisenhower had woken up to the threat that he was himself creating, maybe he would have acted differently, but I don't think he was really in control. I think that the American presidents are mainly puppets, and their masters twiddle their strings and they talk. And then after he was released from the presidential obligations that he had signed on for, he was able to speak a little bit more freely. So that was the message of his closing address. But we've seen a massive militarization throughout the world based around the drug war. The drug war, Professor David Nutt points this out in our films, in the film Drug Lord. He says that the DEA are perhaps the number one threat to world peace in terms of the way they've militarized zones of the world through the enforcement of their drug policies and their eradication programs.
And this actually sounds all too familiar. Have you ever noticed how every single time they say, oh, we're going to solve this problem for you, it's actually them that caused the problem in the first place, or there was no problem there in the first place at all. And then, guess who profits by these solutions that they're going to propose? It'll save everybody from these problems that they either caused or never existed.
It's the law enforcement agencies, it's the prison industrial complex, currently under the control of Serco, the same people who build nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction, a UK multinational. So it's like I said, it's a profit scheme. Serco builds the weapons, Serco houses the prisoners, Serco controls the crowd. That's one of the other things they do. They do crowd control, sort of paramilitary operations. They're bad people. They're not the kind of people that you want the government of this country to be signing indefinite contracts with, which is what their control over 2 private prisons in this country has wed the government to.
Yeah, definitely not indefinitely. That would be. That'd be very, very nice and damn skippy, would it not? However, it occurs to me that public policy does not get made by the people that the policy governs. They get made by people above the law.
Yeah, the way the lawmaking process...
Could you elucidate on that, actually? How equally are these drug laws applied? Are the rich just as likely to get busted for pot on the side of the street as a poor person?
The chances of you being arrested and prosecuted and going to prison and all of the rollout of an arrest, at each stage it is higher depending on your race and lower depending on your income. So, for example, in this country, the most likely group of people to be arrested are Maori males. Young Maori males are the number one group of people being arrested in New Zealand. They're 4 times more likely to be stopped and searched. They're 7 times more likely to be arrested. They're 7 times more likely to be charged. They are 5 times more likely to be convicted, and when convicted, they are 5 times more likely to receive a prison sentence than a white defendant. So these statistics are borne out in the United States in almost identical ways in terms of black. You substitute black male for Maori male, and you see basically an exact same chart in terms of how people are arrested and discriminated against based on their race and their income.
Sounds like eugenics to me.
Well, it could be considered that way. You're definitely filtering out a certain segment of the population and reducing their chances of procreating. So it is a form of eugenics. It's definitely shaping the population. In America, you've got 1 in 4 black men having been arrested. That's an obscene number. And in New Zealand, you've got 15% of the Maori population has been arrested. 15% is a very scary statistic. So, there has to be some kind of... Sorry, let me correct that. 15% of the population is Maori, and 51% of the prison population is Maori. So that's a huge disproportion in terms of the representation of the population in the prison compared to the general population. We've got to change these because we're disenfranchising huge swathes of the population.
I think that's the agenda. Who benefits?
Yeah. Kibono, exactly. And in this case, it's rich white guys who benefit. It tends to be. Rich white guys set up the drug laws that we have. Harry Anslinger, Richard Nixon, Randolph Hearst. In fact, I'm going to mention that I think the key figure in the entire conspiracy against the cannabis plant was a former Treasury of the U.S. Secretary, Andrew Mellon, who was at that time one of the richest men, if not the richest man in America, who financed the DuPont Chemical Company, and who also financed the Mellon Institute of Research, which produced the research that said that fluoride's good for your teeth back in the 1930s. And based on that bogus research from 75, 80 years ago, 84 years ago, however long, we still fluoridate our water, even outside of the US. This stupid idea has caught on.
Incidentally, you know how you were telling us the statistics of Māoris in prison and the blacks in prison and all that kind of thing because of the drug war? Well, I saw a stat that fluoride affects black people's teeth worse and Hispanic people's teeth worse than white people, and in some cases twice, if not three times as badly.
Really? It wouldn't surprise me. Fluoride is not good for you. Anyone who's listening to this should stop drinking fluoridated water. I try to avoid it myself, but it's very difficult. You don't actually know what they're putting in the water. It could be something much worse than fluoride, and you better hope it's pharmaceutical-grade fluoride, because it's usually just toxic fluoride that's waste material. So thanks for listening.
With like about 17 trace minerals and stuff in it, all conspiracies tie into all other kinds of conspiracies, and that's the problem with being a proud conspiracy theorist as I am, is that I just think that nothing's too crazy. Really, everything seems to have a reason for people suspecting it, and if it comes from an official source, it's most likely the direct opposite of whatever they're saying it is. Cannabis is evil, it's useless, it destroys your brain, it kills your liver, blah, 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 blah. It's just all bollocks.
It is. Ronald Reagan came up with some corkers. I mean, back in the day when he was president, he made a statement that marijuana could turn out to be the most dangerous drug that is in use in our country today. And the preamble to that statement was that he's disappointed in the media for not bringing attention to the subject, when the media were basically yapping zero tolerance throughout his entire zero tolerance campaign that his wife orchestrated. So the media was being extremely obedient, but he was nevertheless disappointed in them. And very few people know that Reagan himself was a salesman for Benson and Hedges? Sorry, Chesterfields. He was a salesman for the tobacco companies, and he did that for a long time. I mean, you see him age throughout these endorsement photographs. He ages over a period of about 35 years. So he was doing that for a while. I mean, promoting cigars, promoting Chesterfields. There's a Christmas ad of him holding up a pack of Chesterfields saying, get your friends a carton of Chesterfields for Christmas. So this is the same dude who claimed that marijuana is the most dangerous drug in America, when cigarettes kill 500,000 Americans every year. It's by far the number one killer drug in America and, in fact, in the world. I'd like to just drop this number on people. 6.3 million deaths per year, according to the World Health Organization, caused by cigarettes, and an additional 600,000 deaths per year, 300,000 of them children, from secondhand smoke, pushing our total to just under 7 million deaths a year from Ronald Reagan's second favorite drug, because I think he had a penchant for alcohol.
Which is again dwarfed by a new study of the American Medical Association, which was found to kill 40 million people a year.
Yep. Alcohol is the most, in terms of social harms and in terms of harms to the user, alcohol vies for first place with heroin as the most dangerous drug. And depending on which index you use, it's actually number one. I'm
talking about like hospital accidents and stuff like that. You know, just you're actually more likely to be killed by a doctor than anything. Did you know that?
Oh, right.
And also, if you have the letters MD after your name, I found this out you're 11 times more likely to be a serial killer.
11 times more likely. That's interesting. I'm glad I'm not a doctor.
I'm not saying all doctors are killers. It's just you're 11 times more likely to be one.
Right. Well, there's an interesting study in New Zealand about health professionals that found that they use cannabis at a far higher rate than the average population. So maybe we need to get those serial killing doctors high. And
I'm not sure it would help because
passive.
There's a reason why doctors are on drugs themselves, on prescription medications, are heavy drinkers, heavy smokers, and all of that. Okay, is because I believe that the medical industry got taken over by the Rockefeller Foundation, basically. All right, and now they teach everything. They tell you, okay, well, you got to use drugs. Why are these drugs? What are they made out of? Well, they're made out of waste products that we can't actually use in our petroleum products. You mean like waste stuff from a well that doesn't break down and is really dangerous and stuff like that, and has psychoactive effects? Yeah, those kind of drugs. Are you telling me that these are the only things that we can prescribe people now in order to help them with diseases and none of these drugs cure? Yep, that's right. Okay. That's really depressing. I think I might go smoke some weed.
Yeah, it is depressing. It's basically like what you describe, except they use, sexy women, and I've met them, to seduce these doctors into buying their drugs, whining and dining them. They have massive budgets. They get paid really well, and they're not just women; they're men as well. Pharmaceutical reps, I'm talking about, and they cajole these doctors into taking, the drug, testing it, prescribing it. They get their kickbacks. They get their Diners Club card, verified. Who knows what they're getting, but they're getting sweet deals from these pharmaceutical companies who are spending $100 billion a year to advertise their toxic products to the general population so that you become a lifelong dependent on whatever product it is that you were unfortunate enough to be prescribed.
And they only give you drugs that you can't grow yourself.
That's true. Or, in the case of GW Pharmaceuticals, profit off the fact that you cannot grow cannabis, whereas they have 3 gigantic warehouse facilities in the United Kingdom producing very high-grade medicinal marijuana. So their market share is legally protected. They're loving it. And they're loving the fact that a little spray of Sativex costs $500, and that'll last you 1 week. So if you have MS, well, you better have $500 a week for your Sativex, because you can't get it any other way legally in this country.
You're going to be freaking kidding me. It's almost worth the risk getting busted, isn't it?
Oh, well, many people are taking that risk. And, with the prevalence of use in this country, it being tied with Australia for number one in terms of its consumption of cannabis, even though there are so many people being arrested, there's just this vast group of people who are growing, distributing, and never having any interdiction with the law. Because just of the numbers, the police are overwhelmed. They're scurrying about as fast as they can to arrest as many people as they can, and they're not even making a dent in the overall population who are using.
Just dents in individuals' lives that kind of destroy them forever.
Big dents in the individual's life, but no dent in terms of... In fact, as we pointed out, they're having the opposite effect, because as you drive up the price through these scurrilous legal maneuverings, you incentivize people from entering that black market. Incentivization is what drives the economy, and that's what was a gigantic gift to crime when they made drugs illegal. The biggest gift to crime ever. In fact, organized crime was based around the prohibition of alcohol. So thank you very much for that stupid prohibition, because all the other organized crime networks that developed in the United States after the 1930s were established during that period.
I thought they called that the Senate.
Oh, well, you know, that's another gang. You know, there's a lot of gangsterism that the documentary hints at in terms of governmental gangsterism. That, you know, this cabal of people that made marijuana illegal and the cabal of people that perpetuates the prohibition are themselves a gang, and they operate as a gang. The only difference is that you, the taxpayer, give them a salary, as well as the other little income streams that they manage to generate through their gang activity.
Which is why I would prefer to be governed by the mafia, because at least when I give the mafia protection money, I get protection.
You get protection, exactly. Exactly. You're giving protection money to the state of the gang state. Currently the chief gangster is your Prime Minister John Key, who is a financial crook. Anyone out there who thinks that John Key is cool, go kill yourself. He's not a cool person. He is a bad man.
He's not being too harsh. Seriously, kill yourself. You have nothing of use to offer the human race.
Exactly. Your genes should be extinguished.
You should sell all your assets. You should sell all your assets, get yourself massively in debt, okay? That's the best thing for you, because then you will be homeless, destitute, and die of your wounds.
I better not rant too much about Johnny K, because I'm going to be applying for my citizenship in a few months. And I don't want some of his agents.
Yeah, but you don't have to swear allegiance to JK.
Please, Johnny K. Don't kick me out. Don't kick me out.
That should be quite funny to see you.
I retract my earlier statement. No, he's a powerful man. I don't know if people out there know, but he was a Merrill Lynch bankster before he became Prime Minister of New Zealand. And this is my prediction, listeners out there, that in approximately 6 months, just before the next general election, Johnny K is going to bring his friend Barry O out here so that they can have a little powwow and look presidential next to each other. And that's what's going to win Johnny K a third term. Just that PR stunt. That alone is going to make stupid New Zealanders vote for him. That PR stunt alone is going to win the election.
Bringing over the US president who in his first term, maybe even his first year if I remember correctly, borrowed more money than all previous presidents combined, he will come over here in order to back up the re-election campaign of the man who got elected in 2008, and in his first term or his first year, I remember correctly, borrowed more money than any other New Zealand Prime Minister in history.
Yep, the pattern there is difficult to ignore, and
it doesn't stop there. They also both come from a blue political party, and
that's right.
They were also both elected in 2008.
That is, and they were both working for financial institutions at some point. In fact, I think it's the same financial institution. They both worked for Merrill Lynch. So you might want to fact check me out there, listeners at home, but I believe they both worked for Merrill Lynch.
You know what I reckon? They're having sex.
I wouldn't put it past John Key to be some kind of, you know, I'm not saying gay is deviant, but some kind of deviancy there, you know, probably not something we want to talk about.
Like an artificially sweetened deviant, like a Steviant.
A Steviant. I think John Key is probably going to invest in robotics to make some kind of a robot sex doll that he can have sex with. I think that's his particular stripe of deviancy. Because he's not completely human, so he cannot enjoy having sex with a human.
Well, you can't say that he's not completely human. I mean, he did deny that he was a reptile.
Did he? Did he actually make that formal denial?
Yes. The media forced a denial out of him. They got a denial that he was a reptile.
Really? Well, I'm still not convinced. I mean, he's definitely a cold-blooded individual. Wow, that's a powerful picture. Let me see that again. Sorry, viewers at home. Put that up on the screen. No, actually, no. Leave my branding. We've in case we never put the podcast out, we've got some great branding behind me for the film DRUGLAWED, DRUGLAWED. Go to our Kickstarter campaign and give us some money to finish this film, please. We're going to be distributing this all over the world. You'll be able to download it on the internet. We've got T-shirts ready. If we ever put the podcast out, you'll see the DRUGLAWED T-shirt that I'm wearing now. You can get those on the Kickstarter site. Please visit us, and even a small donation of $1 is something that helps us because it ups the number of people who've backed us and then creates confidence in the people who subsequently see the Kickstarter page.
Yeah, who knows? It might get rolling, you know. And we had this picture of John Key on the cover of Crime magazine, you know, like Time magazine, except it's crime.
Crime magazine. Yep, there he is.
Yeah, Prime Sinister.
Smiling.
It's just some kind of a demonic
sociopathic grin.
It's the bankster smile, bro. The bankster smile.
It is.
You know? It's real nasty. And we've also got... I've got so many pictures of him on the website. Like, honestly, he's been putting the dick and dictator in this country since 2008. I assure you, ladies and gentlemen. And we kind of turned into a nation of sheep, ironically, for New Zealand.
It is.
Well, you know what was real funny, Eric, actually? I'm going to tell you this. I'm so going to tell you this. John Key had so many articles in TV3 and TVNZ and frickin' The Herald and every single other form of New Zealand media and scum in this country, right? Saying that he lied about something. All right, he lied about this. He lied about that. He slipped them up on this and that. And then, article comes out. John Key, guess who's the most trusted and most liked Prime Sinister?
M2's Man of the Year, John Key. He was on the cover of M2. Now, and I have to scratch my head in wonder at the total lack of discernment of the New Zealand media, the mainstream media, yourself accepted.
Well, and the people themselves. I mean, like there was a study that went out that they said, I think like 40% of respondents said that John Key was sexy, and which I think highlights the drinking problem that we've got in this country.
Yep, we definitely have a drinking problem in this country. Alcohol is the #1 drug problem in this country, listeners. There's a binge drinking culture. 10% of Kiwis are alcoholics, according to a recent study. You know, it's pretty much out of control. You see when the All Blacks run out on their rugby field to bash each other senseless, and everybody cheers. They got Lion Nathan's branding all over them. So their principal sponsor is an alcohol company, an international alcohol company. And the public picks up the cost, the $16 billion annual cost, excluding knock-on costs, of damage to through alcohol.
Knock-on costs? Is that a rugby pun?
No, not really. Not really. I want to get off the subject of rugby in case we have New Zealand listeners who disapprove of me pointing out the fact that rugby is costing your health system almost as much as cannabis prohibition. Not quite, but a large percentage of your health costs are borne by rugby.
Whoever thought that rugby was hazardous to your health? You know, you ever thought the other massive tackles and all the injuries would have possibly given that one away earlier? But we'll be right back after the break, ladies and gentlemen, at the VinnyEastwoodshow.com. Arik Rice is my guest, and we'll be right back, folks. Don't you go anywhere.